Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Rabbit and Red Reviews. Today, we have an exciting face-off between two Glenfarclas expressions, the 12-year and the 25-year. So let's get into it. First, a little bit about Glenfarclas. So Glenfarclas is a distillery in the Speyside region of Scotland. What's interesting is that despite being quote-unquote a Speyside Scotch, as you can see on their bottle, they call themselves a Highland malt. As you know, not all Speyside or Highland malts are Speyside, but all Speyside malts are essentially Highland. Glenfarclas is actually one of the few remaining distilleries operating in Scotland that's still family owned. So what you get out of that is prices that are not through the roof. You also don't get a lot of flashy advertising, flashy looking bottles. They have a very traditional approach, a very traditional look. They're also one of the few remaining that use direct fire for their stills instead of using steam like most folks. Their stuff is still aged in old school dunnage warehouses. So Glenfarclas definitely takes pride in following a very traditional Scotch whiskey distilling approach to making all of their single malts. The first thing we will do is take a look at the Glenfarclas 12-year-old single malt Scotch. So I have these two poured out right here. This is the Glenfarclas 12. It is said that Glenfarclas is all natural colored, which they indicate on the bottle. I've also seen through secondary sources that all of Glenfarclas is non-chill filtered as well, which is very exciting. And the second malt that we will do today, of course, is the Glenfarclas 25. So take a peek at that here, and here's what they look like side by side. This is the 12, and this is the 25. You can definitely see that the 25 is a bit darker, which is totally expected considering it is over double the age of the 12-year. Both of these have a couple things in common. Besides being naturally colored, besides being non-chill filtered. They are both aged in both ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks. So they are also both bottled at 43% ABV. So they do have some commonalities. So the first thing we'll do is we'll do a nose, palate, and finish review of both of these expressions, and then I'll share my thoughts on whether or not they're worth the money, which one you should be looking for when you're at the shop. So first, starting with the 12-year. So to start, the sherry notes are definitely popping right out of this glass. I would describe the nose as being like Christmas. A lot of baking spices, cinnamon, clove. Both of these are really popping out. Caramel as well. You're getting a little bit of that. Definitely coming off that ex-bourbon. Nothing in regards to peat, but the sherry is making itself known here as well. It's bright. We're talking about apples, other bright red fruits, almost berries to some degree. And the malt. You're definitely getting a good scent of the barley malt. Delicious. Moving on now to the Glenfarclas 25. Getting a nuttiness. It's hard to say. Almond. Vanilla definitely shining through here as well. Similar with the wood spices, baking spices. So that cinnamon, allspice, clove, all kind of making its presence felt here. Definitely a darker smell coming off of the nose on this one, which again is to be expected considering the age. So it's not as much bright red fruits. It's almost darker red fruits, stewed fruits, maybe like prune, raisin, plum almost. Dried fruit kind of as well. If you think about like that sweetness that comes on like whenever you're eating a dried fruit, you're getting a bit of that too here on the nose. Really impressive so far. Well balanced. While the 12 things are kind of shouting at you, this one, they're all a little bit more subdued, but very well blended together. Okay, so first, we're going to move on to the palate of the 12. Strong arrival. The fruits are definitely making their presence known here. But quickly kind of moves right into the caramel. So the caramel is very dominant here. Wisp of maybe smoke. These are both unpeated, but you can't help but get a little bit of smoke on this one. You can definitely tell it's a little bit younger. It's got sharper edges, getting a little bit of that alcohol burn as it goes into the finish. Not much. Somewhat drying finish, medium in length, but by and large, pretty good. It's got a creaminess to it as well. Really coming off that caramel, vanilla. Solid dram here, solid dram. Okay. So moving on to the 25 year. Immediately on the 25, just full, really, really deep, complex. You're getting the sweetness again from the kind of dried fruits that you pick up on the nose, but really, really full mouthfeel. While the 12 was a bit lighter, this just kind of coats your whole mouth, almost in a mouth watering way. Getting some of the bourbon notes as well, so that caramel, a little bit of leathery, maybe tobacco. There's also a distant kind of mintiness to this. Almost like a menthol just kind of in the background, not picking up that kind of smoke, that slight wisp of smoke we saw with the 12, but by and large, moving into the finish, it's very drying. So this might be where you're picking up the influence the most from that 25 years in the cask. Yeah, while the other one had a little bit more of a mouth balanced finish, this one is a little bit more abrupt. You're getting a lot of nice lingering notes though. So you're definitely getting that kind of Christmas cake, almost like stewed wine or mulled wine rather. But a lot happening here, even in the finish as it's continuing to dry. Not as sweet, just much deeper, much more complex. Not the most complex whiskey. I mean, especially for a 25 year, you'd almost expect a little bit more, but really solid. Okay. So, having tried both of these, what can really be said in comparison? Obviously, the 25-year-old Scotch and the 12-year-old Scotch have major differences, and that rule definitely is applying here to both of these Glenfarclas expressions. The 12, you can find here around the United States anywhere from about $45 to $60. Really kind of a great entry Scotch for those who are interested in sherry matured Scotches. It is a little bit sharper around the edges. You know, even when you compare this to some other sherry influenced Scotches. Take one more sip here. All in all, a really good expression for that price and that kind of traditional style that you're getting out of this. I would give this 3.5. Definitely worth 3.5 is what we're going to say. This is a good sherry influenced Scotch. Definitely worth buying a glass if you're into sherry Scotches at all. Buying a glass at your local bar. If you find a bottle for a good price, it's definitely worth picking up. So the 25, on the other hand, It goes without saying, much richer, much deeper, a bit more complexity. But to be honest, for a 25-year-old Scotch, I was almost expecting just a little bit more. If you've ever tried to buy a Scotch this old before, you will find that they are, $300, $400, sometimes $500, $600. The Glenfarclas 25, you can find around the United States for anywhere from around $140, $150 to $180, $190. So the range varies in terms of cost. But if you're looking for a really, really deep, rich Scotch, this one definitely fits the bill. But I wouldn't just say that it's the most complex and the most rewarding 25-year-old you'll ever have. But for the price, you can do a lot worse. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Again, worth picking up a bottle if you can, but that price is really what sells it the most. So the ultimate question then you have to ask yourself is, if you're looking for a Glenfarclas Sherry Scotch, which way do you go? For the 12-year, it's right around a similar range that you'll find other 12-year Sherry Scotch expressions, Sherry influenced single malt Scotch expressions for, right in that, $45 to $60 range. For that, I would almost say that compared to this, at the $145 to $190 range, if you can find it on the lower end, I would recommend, shelling over those extra dollars that you have and moving right into a 25-year. You won't be disappointed. But if you're on a budget and you're trying to make a decision on whether or not to, is this really worth $100 more compared to the 12? That's a tough call, and I would almost lean towards no. This is a great dram. It's a great price for a 25, but it's not blowing my mind the way you would almost expect a 25 to do, despite it being low. With that, I hope this was helpful in thinking about how you're going to approach buying your next single malt and whether it's worth the money to spend on a significantly more aged sherry single malt. With that, I'll raise a glass to you, and we'll catch you next time here on Rabbit and Red Reviews. It's lunch.